everyone, and welcome back to today's episode about abandoned places. I'm your host, Allison in Wonderland. Are you ready to explore them and see what they have in store? Or are you afraid to go in because of the oh so creepy factor? Did you see that shadow? Or was it my imagination? Run! There's a crazy person with a knife. Now, let's explore some stories of abandoned places. A stranger appeared out of nowhere. There's an abandoned and boarded up World War II fort in the southern part of Belgium that we often sneak into with the scouts. Getting in there requires scaling a sheer wall where we've placed anchoring points for ropes and climbing gear next to a relatively busy road. So, you're being super quiet, making no light or sounds, and cowering every time a car passes by so he or she doesn't spot you with their headlights. The atmosphere is set. The moment you enter it, it's like diving into water. Sound stops, and the entire place is at a constant 14 degrees Celsius, 52 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you with Fahrenheit, with a slight breeze passing through. The tunnel is barely large enough for me to fit, slightly broader than the average person, to pass without turning my body sideways. The tunnel is just high enough to work up a decent gait while hunched over. If someone ahead of you blocks a passage for a moment, the breeze stops, and it feels like the entire tunnel network takes a breath. Because of the way the tunnels are constructed, they echo in such a way that your own footsteps seem to be coming from behind you. They also seem to take one more step than what you do than when you stop. Of course, we don't let people take any source of light in there, so it's pretty scary overall. So, I'm in there, posted at a side passage to ensure everyone takes the same path and doesn't get lost. I go in first before any of the climbers arrive, so they don't really know there are friendly faces in there to help them. I'm in there for a while, just waiting for the first to come by, when I see a dancing little light coming down the long hallway. I quietly settle back into my nook and wait for whoever was smart enough to hide some matches and take them away. The light quickly and quietly bobs closer when I realize there aren't any footsteps accompanying it. I poke my head around the corner just in time to see it disappear. I still hear no footsteps. I settle back and wait some more, when I realize I do hear some scuffling. Though very faint, breathing noises can be heard. I become aware of a wet heat coming from right in front of me, with a faint smell of sweat or dirt. Suddenly I realize there's someone there, right in front of me, inches from my face. The breathing stops suddenly. Whatever it is aware of me as well. Whatever, or whoever it is, we're both holding our breath, both acutely aware of each other. It takes ages. I'm sitting there unable to move, speak, or breathe properly. The wet heat passes, and some minutes later, I become aware of very faint light coming from my right side, which soon dissipates and leaves. Sometime later, I hear the familiar stomping of combat boots coming down the hallway. From my left, I stop the person, tell them to keep following the passageway and take the first right they come to. Out of curiosity, I ask who went in first. No one. He was the first in. There were scratch marks inside of the closet. I was in a house that the police confiscated from a biker gang. My job was to assess the damage for an insurance company. The walls were all painted white, and the floor were sheets of plywood painted dark red. I was going around measuring each room, opening doors, no problem. I then opened the linen closet, and it had a deep scratch mark on the inside and dents on the back of the door, like someone was trying to escape. The freaky part was, straight ahead at my head level, was a round red splattered pattern on the back of the wall that had been painted over with a coat of white paint. Freaked me out, like someone was trapped in there, and then someone opened the door and shot them in the head. We stumbled across a dead creature. My buddy and I spent many years crawling through sewer pipes. One day, we were out in the woods. He, another friend of mine, and myself were deep in the woods. We found some pipe sticking out of a hillside and agreed to explore it. We crawled down this thing, a good 100 feet or so, on our hands and knees. At times it gets smaller, and we are on our stomachs. Finally, it comes to one of those big manhole rooms, and we get the impression we are under a house. Of course, we also know that in some places manholes will exist in the middle of nowhere for future developments. Anyways, the room has 3 other super small pipes heading off into different directions, like slither on your stomach size. We choose one and make our friend Z go first. We go down about 300 feet and he shouts back that there's something in the way. He thinks it's a dead animal, but since we are using weak headlamps, he can't tell. To coerce him to climb over it. Then it's my turn. He's freaking out, saying stuff is all over his clothes and he didn't know what it was. I climb over this dark lump of refuse. Feels like a body. But not human, obviously. Not even an animal. Just alien. And it smells bad. Horribly, in fact. I slide over the stuff, almost puking. My other friend behind me comes next. Same story for him. We keep going, asking ourselves why we were even doing this in the first place. Exploration in the unknown, the forbidden, etc. We crawl another few hundred feet, and Z starts complaining about a horrible, god-awful stench ahead. We can't, for the life of him, get him to continue. He ends up throwing up. We start throwing the idea around of gas of some sort. He says with his headlamp that there is something big up ahead. Looks like an honest-to-God body. Human, maybe. We slide backwards quickly until we get to the manhole room. We crawl out very quickly. We get back into the sunlight and investigate the stuff that got stuck to our clothes from the thing we slid over. It's dark, bloody dark. Pretty close to refuse dark. It looks like fur. We agree that it is probably a trapped animal of some sort. We don't plan on going back there ever again. A ghost appeared out of nowhere. I once was alone at Moorgate Station in London after staying for a few after-work drinks with a friend of mine who also works in Central. It was around 10 p.m., so I left the pub and walked to the station and found I had missed the previous train by about 5 minutes. Moorgate Station is an underground station, but the overground train departs and terminate there. The train that I needed to catch always departs from the 2 platforms that are in their individual tunnels adjacent to one another, but accessible by foot, as they are connected by paths that connect the platforms every 15 feet or so. I was sitting on a bench right at the end, near where the front of the train would be departing. As I sat there, I saw some movement in the corner of my eye, so I turned and started to see a regular guy dressed in dark clothing coming from one of the other platform passages about 10 meters from myself, and thought nothing of it. He went by the track, stared down, backed away, and ran back through the passage to the other platform. I thought to myself that was weird and quickly got up to follow him and find out why he was running off and to see if he was okay. I was no more than 5 seconds behind him, and the exit entryway to the platform is right by the other end, which is a good 150 meters away or so. As I go through the passage to the other platform, I look to see no one there. I then went back to the other platform, and again, I was the only one there. I then went back to the other platform, and again, I was the only one there, apart from a woman who just reached the bottom of the escalator to the platform entrance right down the other end. It was something I couldn't explain, and I wasn't sure I could explain it. And I was sure I couldn't recall any footsteps that made it even weirder. London is an old place, and has a lot of history, so not sure if there was an event that could give reasoning to what I experienced, but it's a memory that will always stick with me. I came across 5 carcasses and then quit my job. Although it's technically not an urban exploration job or story, as a former electrician, I think I can still share on the moment from a job I had to do about 13 years ago. My job partner and I were called out to a larger restoration job that was being done to an older house from the early 1900s. The house, until this point, a family-owned house which had 2 owners since it was built. The last owner was an old lady who passed away there whilst being the last person in her family line. Sad story on its own, and nobody could take over the house. So, the house got auctioned to a younger couple that bought it for an insanely cheap amount of money due to how large the house was. But it was now time to get this old house up to modern standards, which included a completely new installation from scratch, as the old cables around the house were the types of cables that were insulated with black cotton and fastened with handcrafted wooden clamps. While working on the first floor was easy, as the entire installation process was made to fit inside the new wall frames that carpenters were setting up. We eventually had to move to the second floor and prepare for setting up a new intake from the attic, which would then pass down to the new main fuse box on the second floor. We opened the hatch to the attic, and while using the flashlight to look up there, we could surely see the attic was very cramped, so the smallest of us would have to go up there to fix everything to get the intake cable settled while removing the old one. As you might guess, I was the smallest of us, and had to do the crappy job, going up where nobody probably had been for many years. So, I decided to grab a lunch break and mentally prepare myself for what I expected to become a pretty crappy job. After eating, I grabbed my flashlight and tool belt and started climbing up the stairs. And while climbing upwards, I noticed that there was a smell that we, though as pretty much old people thought as an old person smell after they die, was getting increasingly stronger. I had to continue, so I got to the top and crawled myself onto something stable when I got up, while noticing that the smell up there was pretty bad. I grabbed my flashlight to look around and got someone oriented about where to crawl. Looking forward, it seemed like a pretty straightforward route towards the intake point that I could see in the distance, but out of curiosity, I wondered if there was anything up there. So I looked to my right, only to light up 5 carcasses of what once was the old lady's cats that probably had died. One of them were more or less intact while being visibly partially eaten by various insects, while two of them were more or less just rotten, dried skin and bones. At that moment, I absolutely regretted my decision to eat lunch, as the sight of this, along with the realization about what I had smelled along, was the dead cats, and immediately threw up on the spot before very swiftly nooping the heck out of there. After some talk back and forth, we came to the possibility that the old lady had been throwing her cats up there when they died, one by one. But we will never know for sure since the lady had passed away. The new owners had no idea about this when buying the house, but our company ended up denying continuing to work until the attic had been cleaned appropriately. This apparently took them about 1 month. I guess there are not many companies who wants to deal with that kind of nasty stuff. But my partner at work ended up finishing the work on the attic afterwards, as he felt kind of bad for me. In the end, I decided to not continue being an electrician anymore, as this was not the work I really enjoyed doing, especially not after this event. Hey y'all, Alice in Wonderland here. I hope you enjoyed the video, so go ahead and like, comment, and share on my video. Also, if you're a new subscriber, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell icon. I also want to apologize in the delay of putting this video out there. I had an upper respiratory infection and I sounded completely and utterly like crap, and I just lost my voice there for a couple days and then couldn't just stop coughing for a good week and a half, so I was just trying to get myself settled before I put this out there, so I hope you all enjoyed it.